Hello, Aries. If you're hearing this right now, it means your soul has traveled a long way through places where strength became armor and pain became the fire that kept you alive. But tonight, let everything slow down for a moment. Let the noise of the world fade until all that's left is you and the sound of your own breath. How long has it been since you truly stopped, just to listen to what your heart has to say? Sometimes, what exhausts us isn't the path itself, but the way we keep forcing our steps forward. And sometimes, what holds us isn't the wound, it's a single thought we never noticed. So sit down, let your shoulders drop. Because from this very moment, what you're about to hear isn't a prophecy, but a gentle reminder from the universe about strength, about faith, and about a quiet truth waiting to be found right inside your own heart. There are moments in life when we think we're moving forward, but in truth, we're just circling inside an invisible cage, one built from our own strength. Aries, you've lived too long believing that if you just stay strong, every pain will eventually make sense. You've stood back up after every fall, smiled through every loss, whispering, "I'm fine, I can handle it." But sometimes, that very phrase, "I can handle it," becomes the curse that chains your soul. You've walked through fire without calling for help. You've clenched your heart when it begged to rest. You've turned endurance into a habit, so much that when the storm finally passed, you still didn't dare take off your armor. Because deep inside, you feared that if you let go, the world would collapse, and everything you built with blood and will would disappear. But life doesn't always ask us to be strong. Sometimes, it just asks us to be real. Real enough to say, "I'm tired." Real enough to say, "I'm scared." Real enough to whisper, "I don't need to prove anything anymore." You once believed strength was the only light that could guide you, but that light has always been inside you, needing no struggle, no fire, only presence. Maybe what you need now isn't more courage, but more gentleness toward yourself. People taught you how to endure, but no one taught you how to rest. They praised your resilience, but few ever praised your ability to stop. And you, in your devotion to duty, mission, and meaning, forgot that life was never meant to be a competition. When you walk through pain, the scariest thing isn't the wound itself. It's not knowing that you've already healed. You keep holding your sword, defending against shadows, trembling before peace as if it were a trap. You've lived in survival mode for so long that even peace feels suspicious. But Aries, peace isn't the absence of vigilance. It's the sign that you've made it through, that you've done enough, that it's time to come home. Close your eyes, feel your breath touch your chest. No need to think about right or wrong, victory or loss. Just breathe in and out. Each breath is a door opening toward freedom. Each moment of softness is a prayer whispered to the universe. This world doesn't need you. Perfected only needs you real. Real with your tears. Real with your fatigue. Real with the fragility that still trembles inside your heart. Because true strength isn't in the fists that stay clenched. It's in the heart that dares to open. Maybe healing doesn't happen when you climb one more mountain, but when you finally sit beside the road in silence and realize you don't have to climb anymore. And in that moment, strength is no longer a burden, it becomes a blessing. As you touch the stillness within, you'll hear a sound faint, almost hidden. Not the wind, not footsteps. It's your own heart, whispering softly. You can stop fighting now. At first, that voice feels fragile, barely there. But the more you listen, the stronger it becomes. It's gentle, yet powerful, the voice of your soul calling you home. It doesn't command, it doesn't push. It simply invites you inward, to the layers of peace waiting to be uncovered. And as you let that voice guide you, the world around you begins to slow and soften. It feels as if the universe itself is opening, ready to tell you a story it's been keeping just for you. A story where strength is no longer a cage, but a doorway leading you into a space where peace finally takes form. And for the first time in years, you breathe. deeply, completely. Peace often arrives quietly. It doesn't knock, it doesn't call your name, it simply stands there. And yet, your heart doesn't recognize it. Because for too long you've grown used to the wind of battle, not the wind of peace. Aries, you were never afraid to walk through fire, but some flames don't burn outside anymore, they burn within, consuming every trace of calm you try to hold. You look around, and everything seems fine: work, family, life. Yet something deep inside still won't let you fully exhale. It's as if your body has learned to stay tense, ready for impact, even when there's nothing left to defend against. That's no longer pain, it's habit. The habit of survivors. The rhythm of souls who've weathered storms so long they've forgotten how to trust the sunlight. You've learned to be cautious with happiness, as if joy always comes with a hidden cost. When someone treats you kindly, you wonder, what do they really want? When life feels light, you worry, is this peace real, or just the calm before the next storm? You don't realize that this doubt, this quiet vigilance, is the echo of your old wars, a reflex born from wounds so deep you forgot you've already healed. Someone once said, peace isn't when the guns go silent, it's when the call memories stop trembling inside you. Maybe you're still living among those echoes, the echoes of nights you had to stand guard alone, the echoes of moments when silence meant danger, not safety. And those echoes, they've kept you believing that to survive, you must always be ready. But listen closely. The world isn't attacking you anymore. No one's demanding victory. No one's waiting for your fall. The war is over. Only your heart hasn't realized it yet. The only thing keeping you in the battlefield is the belief that if you let go, you'll grow weak. But the truth, Aries, is the opposite. When you let go, you finally start to breathe. And when you breathe, your soul starts to live again. Think of a slow morning sunlight spilling across the table, the steady drip of coffee, time unfolding softly. In that moment, you're not a warrior, not a survivor, you're simply a human being, present, whole, quietly alive. That's the feeling you lost long ago, the safety of not needing to try. You don't have to prove anything to this world anymore. The world doesn't want your perfection. It only asks for your presence. Stop searching for peace as a reward after the storm, because peace is the open sky, waiting for you to lift your gaze. And when you finally do, something shifts gently, almost imperceptibly, as if someone places a hand on your shoulder, not to stop you, but to whisper, "You're safe now." Your heartbeat slows, your breath deepens, your body remembers what it means to rest, and in that moment, you understand you were never fighting the world. You were fighting the soft, fragile part of yourself, the part you mistook for weakness, but that softness was always the doorway back to peace. When that truth lands, there's nothing left to say. You just sit quietly, let your breath brush against your heart, and allow the stillness, light as mist, to lead you deeper, deeper into the hidden chambers of life, where strength and gentleness can finally coexist, and the flame within you begins to change color, from the red of battle to the golden glow of awakening. There are days when the noise inside you is louder than anything outside. Two voices echo within, one strong, sharp, ringing like steel clashing on a battlefield, and another, soft as a breath, whispering simply, "Enough." Aries, you followed that first voice for far too long. It's the fire that once saved you from the dark, the strength that helped you rise when everything fell apart. But sometimes, the very thing that saves us becomes the chain that binds us, keeping us in a constant state of battle, even when there's no enemy left. That voice tells you to push harder, to be better, to win, because if you don't, who will see your worth? But have you ever asked yourself, who would you be if there was nothing left to prove? Deep down, there's another voice, quieter, wiser, gentler. It's not the sound of defeat, but of a soul that's grown tired. It doesn't ask you to stop because you're weak. It asks because you've gone too far, forgotten how to slow down, how to breathe, how to feel. Yet you silence it, afraid that listening might make you useless, that rest means failure. You fear losing your role as the strong one, even though all you really want is to be human again. Not a symbol of resilience, just a person. Sometimes fear doesn't come from the thought of losing, but from not knowing who you are if you stop winning. You've tied your identity so tightly to the fight that you believe stopping means disappearing. But you won't vanish. You'll finally return to yourself. Between those two voices, the warrior and the soul, you will have to choose. One keeps you burning. The other invites you to listen. One beats the war drum. The other sounds like wind passing softly through the trees. And if you stay still long enough, you'll realize that wind is life calling you home. You weren't born just to fight, but to experience. Not to prove, but to live. The world won't collapse when you set your sword down. It will open, because for the first time, you'll see everything without the smoke and fire. Maybe it's time to see that not everyone is against you. Sometimes you're the one building walls and proudly calling them protection. But on the other side of those walls are people who only want to reach you through love, not through challenge. And maybe, without meaning to, you've turned love into another battlefield, even when all it wanted to be was peace. Remember the last time you lost? Didn't a part of you feel lighter? Because in that moment, you stopped resisting, and your soul finally got to breathe. Losing isn't failure. Losing is when the proud mind bows, so the heart can stand tall again. Losing is when you stop trying to be tireless and start learning how to live. The strongest people aren't the ones who never bend in the storm, but the ones who dare to lower their guard and bow before the storm inside, because only then do they see the real sky no longer hidden by the clouds of pride. Sometimes, Aries, the greatest lesson isn't in going on, but in knowing when to stop, because if you never stop, you'll never feel reborn. Life doesn't need you to be unbreakable forever. It just needs you brave enough to be honest with yourself. And then, in the moment you finally let go, something quiet unfolds. No more noise. No more tension. Just space, not emptiness, but room for light to enter. And from that space, a new story begins to form, a deeper layer of your journey, where silence itself begins to teach you what true strength really means. The strength of someone who's finally understood that sometimes just standing still is its own kind of victory. Silence can be more frightening than thunder, because within it, you're forced to hear yourself. Aries, you've lived so long in the noise and the chase of plans, goals, expectations, and the pressure to achieve, to prove, to complete. But one morning you woke up, and the world had slowed. No race, no one pushing you, no applause of victory, just stillness, vast and unfamiliar, and you didn't know what to do with it. Since you were young, you've been taught, keep going, try harder, be strong. But no one ever told you that it also takes courage to sit still. No one taught you that sometimes doing nothing is the only way to heal. Silence, it sounds simple, but for a soul like yours, it's the hardest lesson. Because in silence, there's nowhere left to hide, no one left to blame, no battles to distract you, only yourself and the echoes within. At first, it's uncomfortable. It feels like your inner fire is being forced to go out, and you fear that if you stop burning, you'll lose your light. But if you stay a little longer, you'll realize that flame isn't gone. It's just learning a new way to shine, a way that doesn't hurt anyone anymore, not even you. Some wounds only heal when you stop touching them. Some answers only arrive when you stop searching, and some truths only reveal themselves when you finally step out of your own noise. Silence isn't emptiness. It's the space where truth finally enters. In that quiet, you'll begin to hear your soul whisper the things you've ignored for years. You don't have to be right to be loved. You don't have to be perfect to belong. Peace isn't the end, it's the beginning of a new way to live. Lighter, truer, more human. One day, you'll see it clearly. Healing doesn't come when you win, it comes when you no longer need to. When life stops being a competition and becomes a piece of music. There are crescendos, there are pauses, but it's the still moments between the notes that make the melody whole. You've mastered the fire of action. Now life is inviting you to master the fire of peace, a flame that burns not to conquer, but simply to exist. Not to break through, but to warm. Not to prove, but to be. And when you allow yourself to live this way, everything becomes clearer. The shoulds stop shouting in your head. The guilt of resting fades away. The need to keep moving just to feel worthy dissolves. You simply are, and that is enough. The world doesn't collapse when you stop. It quietly rearranges itself, slowly, gently, as if the universe is adjusting its own breath to match yours. Each inhale, each moment, each ray of light slipping through the window all whisper the same thing: welcome home. And when you stay in that moment long enough, you'll feel something shifting inside. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft movement, like a small ember resting in your palm, warm, gentle, alive. The fire within you, after years of burning to prove, begins to change its form. It's no longer the flame of a warrior, but the light of someone who has learned stillness. A light that doesn't need to blaze to be seen, it only needs to be honest, to be felt. And as it spreads through you, the world begins to change to softer, calmer, almost tender, as if the universe itself is smiling, waiting for you to take one more quiet step into that space where the heart opens, and love finally takes the shape of a breath. There are moments in life, Aries, when you suddenly realize you've gone too far with your own fire. There were times when it blazed so fiercely. It burned away your peace, your love, even the things you once swore to protect. But today, in the quiet of your soul, you begin to see that fire was never your enemy. It's only been waiting for you to guide it back to its true purpose. Fire wasn't born just to fight. It was born to light the way, to drive away the darkness, not to destroy what is beautiful. You once carried the fire of a warrior, strong, relentless, refusing to fall, but you forgot, even fire gets tired. Even fire needs to rest. And light, that's what fire becomes when it grows wiser. Light doesn't shout. It doesn't need victory to be seen. It simply exists, and in its existence, everything around it comes alive. That's the moment you realize. You don't need to burn to be recognized. You don't need to ignite just to prove you're alive. You only need to shine gently, naturally, honestly, like the warmth of a candle in the dark. People think change arrives like thunder, a sudden turning point. But the deepest transformations happen in silence. No audience, no applause, just a subtle movement within the heart, a thin light spreading slowly, softly. It's when you start forgiving yourself for burning too hard. You stop blaming yourself for mistakes, stop fearing the past. You understand every fierce flame had its reason. It existed to teach you the value of gentleness. And then you see real change doesn't need to be announced. It just needs to be. Like dawn, it doesn't ask permission from the night to arrive. It simply comes, and the world naturally brightens. When you reach this stage of life, Aries, your energy shifts. People will notice it. They'll still see your strength, but now it's the kind of strength that makes others feel safe, not intimidated. You'll realize you don't have to win anymore. Because keeping your heart kind, after everything, that's the greatest victory of all. The fire within you is no longer a symbol of resistance. It's a symbol of understanding. It lights the path not only for you, but for those still lost in the dark. You've become the light not because you tried to, but because you've learned how to stop fighting yourself. True maturity isn't about fighting better. It's about knowing when to stop, when to soften, when to let your light speak for you. That light doesn't need to dazzle to have meaning. It only needs to be sincere. Look back for a moment. Every wound was a spark. Every time you rose again was a sunrise. The journey that once felt like ruin was teaching you how to shine from the inside out without needing the fire on the outside. If the flame in your heart could speak today, it might whisper, "I don't want to burn anymore. I just want to be warm." And in that whisper, you'll understand the light you've been searching for was never out there. It's you. After you've stopped needing to prove, after you've left every battle behind, after you've realized that living isn't about burning endlessly, but about knowing when to shine just enough to warm another soul. As you slow down, that light begins to spread. Not like fireworks, but like a small lamp glowing softly in a window, the kind of light that tells weary travelers there's still a place to come home to. And when that light touches the world, you feel something new inside, a current of warmth, of compassion, a soft release in your chest. Your heart begins to open, as if it's hearing a new song from the universe, a song about love, and about a kind of peace that no longer needs to be found, because it's been here all along, in every quiet breath you take. Love, Aries, once came to you like a storm, wild, consuming, unstoppable, sweeping away everything it touched. And in that storm, you believed that only what burned brightest could be real. You loved with every part of your heart, with fire that knew no fear, with passion that had no boundaries. But one day, you realized the things that burn the brightest also fade the fastest. When the final storm passed, you found yourself standing in the quiet. And for the first time, you didn't want to love that way anymore. Not because you'd grown cold, but because you finally understood. Love doesn't have to be loud to be deep. It doesn't have to blaze to be alive. Real love comes like a soft breeze. You don't have to chase it, you just breathe, and it's there. You begin to feel different. In the morning, instead of searching for someone, you feel full, even alone. The songs that once made you cry are now gentle whispers of memory. You no longer wait for a message or a promise. You start to believe that love isn't found in someone, but in the way you meet yourself. Maybe you once thought peace was boring, that only intensity could make your heart race. But true peace isn't the absence of feeling. It's when your heart has matured enough not to struggle anymore. When you can sit still, do nothing, and still feel love for life, for others, for yourself. That's when love is breathing with you. The peace you once feared is the love you've been searching for. Because when the heart no longer tightens in fear, when it no longer trembles at the thought of loss, that's when it truly opens. Opens to receive, not to hold. Opens to understand, not to possess. Opens to see that love isn't about reaching the end together, but about standing side by side, looking in the same direction, and feeling complete. Maybe you're learning to love again, not someone new, but in a new way. A love that needs no promises, no control, no proof. A love that comes like breath, natural, effortless, unafraid. Because now you know no one can take away what's already yours, the love that lives inside your own heart. You realize that true love doesn't make you lose control, it makes you slow down, listen more, touch softer, speak less but mean every word. When your heart opens, you don't just see others with your eyes, but with empathy, understanding, and a kind of tenderness that asks for nothing in return. And then, something miraculous happens. The relationships that once hurt you no longer shake you. The memories that once made you cry now feel like blessings. You begin to see faces, moments, and you smile. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've forgiven. You forgive them. You forgive yourself, and you forgive all the days you thought love had to hurt to be real. Now, you no longer chase love. You simply live, and it finds you. Like light finds a drop of water, like a seed finds the rain. It comes in a quiet touch, in a warm glance, in the peace of sitting beside someone without needing to speak. When you learn to let love breathe, life begins to breathe with you. No rush, no begging, no demands. just a soft rhythm, two souls meeting without trying to outshine each other. And in that moment, you feel as if you've stepped into a new space where everything is softer, lighter, more alive. You hear a voice inside, faint but clear, like a gentle invitation. It's time not just to love, but to awaken. A quiet awakening begins to rise within you, not to send you searching for happiness again, but to remind you that happiness was never gone. It's been here all along, resting quietly, in the steady rhythm of your own heart. There are seasons in life, Aries, when you realize you've been trying to control too much people, circumstances, even destiny itself. You once believed that if you didn't hold on tightly, everything would fall apart, but in that desperate need to keep everything together, you lost something far more precious, your trust in the natural flow of life. Now, as the fire within you learns to soften, a quiet calm begins to spread. Not the silence of surrender, but the peace of someone who's seen the truth beyond the storms. You begin to understand not everything needs to be controlled. Some things only need to be trusted, and some can only bloom when you finally stop reaching for them. You once thought strength meant being able to change everything, to bend the world to your will. But as you've grown, you've learned that true strength doesn't live in reaction. It lives in direction. It's the wisdom to choose your own path, even when you can't change the path of others. It's knowing when to move forward and when to stay still, while still keeping your light alive. Real power is when you stop making yourself the center of everything, and yet your energy quietly draws the world toward you. It's when you no longer need to raise your voice to be heard, your very presence speaks louder than words. Once, your light was so bright that others had to squint just to stand near it. They admired you, but they also feared you. Now, that light has become softer, warmer. It doesn't blind anyone anymore, it guides. It becomes a lantern for wandering souls who've lost their way. You no longer feel the need to save anyone. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you've realized the universe never asked you to rescue it. It only wanted you to stop fighting against it. The moment you stop struggling, life begins to organize itself. The moment you stop proving, energy begins to flow again, light as wind, real as morning. People often ask, how do I become magnetic? How do I make others notice me? The truth is simple, you don't have to do anything. True magnetism doesn't come from effort, it comes from presence. When you're fully here, authentic, grounded, at peace, your energy expands on its own. People feel it, not with their minds, but with their hearts. And perhaps that's the greatest awakening. When you no longer need to become anyone else because you've finally remembered who you are, not the one who must win, not the one who must be perfect, but the one who dares to live at their own rhythm, even while the world keeps racing by. Aries, when you stop resisting, you don't grow weaker. You simply open the door for your real strength to return, the strength of understanding, of faith, of steady confidence without armor. Now, you no longer chase distant light because you've realized you are the light. You no longer ask, how can I find peace? Because you see now peace never left. It's been standing quietly, waiting for you to come home. And one morning, when sunlight slips gently through your window, you'll feel something miraculous. The world looks the same, but you are not. The rush in your chest is gone. The old questions are quiet. The hunger to figure it all out has finally faded. All that remains is a simple gratitude that you're still here, still breathing, still walking, still shining. When will you realize that peace has always been your true strength? Maybe today, maybe right now. And if you do write it down, share it. Because somewhere, someone still fighting their battles might need to hear this. Life isn't meant to be controlled. It's meant to flow, like a gentle river that always finds its way to the ocean, not by force, but by surrender. And when you let go, just like that, a warm light begins to move through your chest. Not a new light, but the one that's always been yours. The one that has finally come home after a very, very long journey. Aries, your journey has reached its most beautiful silence. Not an ending, but the moment you pause, bow your head softly, and smile at life itself. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to push or burn just to be seen. You've already won, not because you conquered everything, but because you kept your heart intact through every break. You walked through the fire, yet instead of turning to ash, you chose to become light. You stepped through darkness, and instead of bitterness, you chose gratitude. Thank you for daring to live, for daring to love, for daring to let go. Thank you for not letting your wounds make you hard, but letting them shape you into someone softer, someone more human. Now, your strength no longer roars, it rests quietly within your soul. Your light no longer fights, it warms the hearts of those who've lost their way. Every breath you take in is a prayer of gratitude. Every breath you release is a blessing to the world. May you always remember this life has never been against you. It has only ever been teaching you how to love yourself more. May the power within you finally rest, and may stillness become your truest companion. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for living with your whole heart. Peace to you, Aries, and may your light remain that gentle lantern, guiding you home to yourself, whenever the night falls.